Afternoon, everybody. I hope I'm audible to all of you. And I appreciate and I thank you all for showing up to this particular Moot Court workshop. And without much ado, I'll call upon Ms. Christine Juma to lead us with a word of prayer.
Okay, let's pray. Father God, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we thank you this afternoon for your kindness, for your goodness, and your faithfulness. We thank you for this particular time that you have given unto us to gather together as students and even those who are not within KABARAK. We just thank you for the way you have kept us. Lord, we ask that you may take charge of this workshop, that God, you will guide us in this session and help us, oh God, to learn, and not only to learn, but to be able, God, to go out there and practice and do the very best that we can, not only in mooting, but in every other thing that we will learn during this session. We pray that you may guide us and lead us, and when we are done, all glory and honor will go back to your name. This we pray, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, once again, I thank you all for showing up for this particular Moot Court workshop. It's one of a kind in KABARAK University. Actually, it's the first Moot Court workshop. And at this time, I would like to call Mr. Justus Otiso to give his opening remarks. Mr. Otiso, the floor is yours. Mr. Otiso?
Yes, thank you. I can hear you. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first and to the inaugural, really, conference on moots in KABARAK. I want to thank you all for making time to attend this event. We know that today, Wednesday afternoons, is reserved for moots and debates, and that's why we placed it here. We placed the timing here. So my opening remarks are really going to be few because we have several presenters today. The first one of which will be Mr. Cedric Kadima, who will make a presentation on writing memorials for purposes of moots, followed by Cindy, who will make a presentation, that's if she has confirmed, on oral pleading, on how is it that you're supposed to speak at this moots, etc. And thereafter, followed by two other students, one of which is our very own Grace Jelimo, to give all of you really her thoughts on the moot proceedings, the procedure, where she has reached, how she has reached so far. And then also we'll have somebody from outside KABARAK, Sidney Tambasi, to address us on and give some inspiration to you students from the perspective of someone who has won a world moot. Okay, mine really is to welcome you to this discourse this afternoon. I can see so far we are 41 participants. I realize that here where we are at the chapel time finished a bit late, and we hope that we'll be joined by many more. I don't know whether Mr. Wachira, Daniel, whether our guest speaker is here already.
Yes, I have seen him join us. Mr. Mabuti Mutua will be our guest speaker for today.
All right,
and
then.
Yeah,
thank you so much. So for the rest of you, I just want to make very few opening remarks. The rest, of course, will be there will be time for discussion for Q&A from the rest of us. One important thing I would like to mention is that we have been joined in KABARAK University by one Harrison Bori as an adjunct faculty for some time. Mr. Mbori is currently doing his PhD at Loyola University in Chicago, US, if I'm not wrong. And for the short time that he has a break, he is doing some research work at the Max Planck Institute, I believe in Luxembourg. Now, Mr. Mbori and I have a history in this sense. We have been on opposing ends. He's on one side, either winning a moot, and therefore me losing the moot to him in a final. And once in a while, yes, I beat him fair and square. So when you have, as the dean put it, and Messi and Ronaldo in one team, well, you know that that is a formidable team. And despite his short stint so far, we managed, of course. He took the lead in managing the foreign direct investment moot team in KABARAK, which I babysat all the way to the global finals. Now he more than babysat that and took it to the semi-finals, the first time really any African team has made that feat. The last time, and we confirmed this from the organizers, that any African team made it. Not as far as the semi-finals. I think it was Strathmore, of which Mr. Mbori was the coach then, having beaten me narrowly in the finals, where I had taken the best orator in Africa. So he reached 7th position. So you can see this, this collaboration, this chemistry is really working. So let me open it up. The only other thing I wish to add in my opening remarks is that we are, as Mr. Mbori will explain to you, in addition to what he will explain to you, the purpose of this workshop is to invite as many people, as many students to be interested in the moot culture, which we have already formed, but we want to take it to the next level. On a personal note, I would like to thank all the participants. When you come into the preliminaries, what I've noticed is that you fall by the wayside. You don't come again. And there is a strategy that Mr. Mbori has, and I agreed upon, of course, his suggestion, that we will employ to make sure that everyone is really catered for. My contribution then will be that if you lose something in the preliminaries, do not worry about it. I'm sure that Grace, Kadima, Cindy will all tell you that winning is not a one-shot thing, okay? It is not one shot at the bullseye. It is a process which you build. I remember having been beaten, although we qualified in the semi-finals of the WTO moot from the preliminaries here in Kenya, and the Kenya School of Law beat us technically in that moot. And when we went to the global finals, we came back home with 2 prizes, and they had none. We came back with the best orator in Africa for that year, and the spirit of the moot. So these things, it's effort, and nothing really works on a day. For my part, I think in increasing the moot culture, increasing the interest and participation in the moot culture, we had started this just before the COVID to try and maybe have first years moot against second years as a way of learning, inspiring, and we'll be giving certificates to all the participants who participate even in the preliminaries. That is one way of encouraging. The second thing, and I have not discussed this with Mr. Mbori because he's been quite busy, but I'm sure he will agree with me, we are going to bring a new crop or a new type of moots. I have just attended with a team across examination moot. None has been done in Kenya, and it's something that we are going to look at, so that your oratory skills at the time of presentation, your research skills before you go to present have already been taken care of. But what about your courtroom skills? Because you need to be asking questions to the witnesses who are there to see their truthfulness or otherwise. So without further ado, then I will let the program move to the next stage. And back to you, Mr. Daniel Wachira. I will shortly step out for another online meeting, which is here for all the staff of KABARAK University, but I'll come back as soon as that is over. In my absence, of course, if there is anything technical or substantive that needs to be asked, then kindly refer that question to Mr. Mbori, who, although he will speak at the end of this, will really be in charge of the rest of the proceedings as the substantive moot coach trainer. Thank you very much for listening to me, and good afternoon.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Mr. Otiso. Mr. Otiso is our moot court coach, and we thank you very much for those words. Without further ado, I shall call upon Mr. Mabuti Mutua, who is our guest speaker for the day. Just a brief history, or just a brief story about Mr. Mabuti Mutua. He is an alumnus of Moy University. He went to the New York University for his master's, and while let me backtrack a little. While in Moy University, he participated in various moot court activities, including the National IHL Moot Court competition, which was held in Arusha in 2015, and their team emerged victorious. He'll come and tell us more about moot court and the importance of moot court and importance of participating in moot court competitions. So, Mr. Mabuti, the floor is yours.
Wow. I don't know whether you guys can see me. I've just decided to sit at a corner in office. Well, now my name is Mabuti Mutua, and I know I haven't met any of you apart from Dan and of course Harrison. I don't know that Harrison is here with us. Yeah, we've been with Harrison at Strathmore, and we've interacted a number of times. I studied in Moy University, and I graduated not so long ago, in 2017. I think some of you, or most of you, were just either finishing high school or were just about to finish high school and then join campus, or had joined campus. Now, I was approached on a very short notice to share just a little bit about my thoughts on moots, having participated in a number of them, won some, had some remarkable performance in some, and some we had to learn lessons. So basically, just to give you an example, or give you a background, whatever, understanding of the reason I was quick to accept the invitation is, number one, I have a direct relationship with what moot court can do to your legal career. So when I was in Moy, mooting was very, well, I'm not certain that it still is, but it was very, very competitive. You wouldn't just be selected to represent the school outside the country, and then the school takes care of your air tickets and takes care of your all manner of expenses, and you're not deserving. So, but the advantage that I would say I had was that I began way early. I remember myself and a few friends of mine with whom we began the mooting journey together. We began in first year, second semester, no, actually first year, first semester, at least at the trial stage, where we begin with the debate, where we begin with an internal moot competition. But the idea was we began on the go at the very, very beginning of our law school life. So I remember when we joined Moi in 2013, September of 2013, there was the audition for the internal competition for the Price Media Law Moot Court competition. We really had no idea what a moot court competition is, but myself and two other guys in first semester, we hadn't even been into a law school class. We joined the other students who are participating or competing now for selection to represent the university. So this is first semester. You haven't stepped foot into a law school class, and you're going to take yourself to be grilled by your lecturers, or some of them prolific mooters, and you're presenting yourself there, and you really don't know exactly what mooting is. Well, our conception then had been that it's just a matter of debating and saying that thing is right or this one is wrong, and all manner of things. So we were there, and the advantage that gave us was that we were able to get ahead of ourselves. We were embarrassed a little bit, but what we used to tell ourselves was that being defeated in an internal competition by a fourth-year student or a third-year student or a second-year student, and you're in first year, is not embarrassing. Actually, that should be the typical situation. So you should not be embarrassed by being defeated by a student who is in fourth year or who is in third year, who is basically ahead of you. But if you defeat them, and you're all ranked, and you defeat some of the students in the upper classes, then you have a reason to pat yourself in the back and say, I actually really tried. If I haven't stepped into a law school class and I have ranked ahead of two or more people, two or three people who are way ahead of me, then I have done something commendable. So that was the motivation, and really got us ahead of everybody else, because by the time those with whom we joined law school were catching up or were trying to figure out, do we begin mooting? How do you even begin the whole process of research and whatever? We already had the advantage of having begun earlier of time. So that is something that I can sort of challenge anybody or any one of you who has the intention to begin mooting to consider seriously. So there's always that temptation, and I know it very, very well, to when there are internal auditions or internal competitions for, let's say, an international moot, let's say international criminal court moot competition. You at the very beginning, you have the motivation to do it, but as the day draws nigh, when you're supposed to be doing the competition, you start chickening out. You start asking yourself, no, I can do it next year. I still have 1 or 2 more years. So right now I'm not very well prepared, and you keep on postponing. So there's always that temptation, and we really, really had to fight that temptation. So I can tell you that it's not only you who had or who has been grappling with the temptation to sort of start and throw yourself into the deep end. No, it's something that occurs, or that something that everybody has had to deal with, including now some of us who eventually now ended up doing quite a number of competitions. Now, by the time I was graduating Moi University, I had done about I had done well, it's easier to list them. So I did the national IHL moot court competition. It's normally done here in Nairobi. The sponsor is normally the ICRC. The good thing about it is that you are paid for in a decent hotel. The competition is very unique. Then we won against, I think KABARAK, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think, yeah, we won against KABARAK Law School 10. No. Either KABARAK or KU. I can't recall where those or that team was coming from, but I think we won against either one of the two. Then we proceeded to Arusha now for the regional rounds. This was back in 2015. I was in second year. And in the regional rounds, we had very remarkable performance. So in the regional rounds, what happened was that you have about 6 or 7 rounds of competition at the preliminary level. Then they determine by averaging your performance as a team, they determine the team that goes to the quarterfinals. So we were the best team at the preliminary round. So we have 6 rounds. Each round is supposed to be ranked or to be scored against a scale of 10. We had about 56, if I recall correctly. So we had 56 out of 60. So for every round, the average you are scoring about 8 or 9 or 8.5. So we were the first to proceed to the quarterfinals against Makerere University, and then on the other side we had a small university in Nigeria against a university in Tanzania called, I think, Ruaha Catholic University of Tanzania, rather. It's called Ruaha Catholic or something, or Catholic University of Tanzania in Ruaha, somewhere in I think not too far from Arusha. So, well, there are so many politics there, which I don't intend to go to, but we really had good performance in that competition. Then now, after that, then we decided we have to do the Jean Pictet. So the Jean Pictet is sort of the mother of all IHL moot court competitions anywhere in the world. So the Jean Pictet is an interesting moot competition. We did it in Georgia, a small country in Eastern Europe, just I think bordering Russia on one side and Ukraine on the other. So it's one of those countries that you may never think that you would ever plan a vacation to. So by the mere fact that we went there was also unique in of itself. So we did the Jean Pictet International Humanitarian Law Moot competition. It's a very unique competition. I don't know whether KABARAK participates. I don't think so, but it's something that you guys should look into. If you would want assistance, I wouldn't mind to assist a team from your school in my free time. But it's a very interesting moot competition. And ICRC, most of the times, well, I can't speak for them, but most of the times they normally fund the team that eventually is selected to participate in the moot, because the selection process is quite competitive. It used to be very competitive during our time. Now it's a little bit relaxed because or it's a little bit fairer because they take double the number of teams they used to take during our time. In 2017, they were taking, in 2017 and the years, I think 2018 and the years back, they were taking about 48 teams around all the universities around the world. But now they take 96. So they doubled due to the higher number of schools that are applying. So they thought that now it might be unfair for the competition to be only limited to a specific group of students. Then we did the International Criminal Court moot. You visit The Hague. It's an interesting place to be. Then we did the Prize Media Law Moot competition on the right, freedom of expression and the like. The reason I'm trying to tell you the competitions that I did is to show you the advantage of time. Had I, or had we not begun a little earlier at first year of law school, then by the time you are in third year, you only have 2 years to work with. So you do 1 or 2, and you can only do maybe 1 or 2 moots in a year. So it's not possible to do way too many of them in 1 year. So the other thing is that you notice these are different countries that you get the advantage of visiting, and you spend no coin of your own or no penny of your own. These are competitions which are sort of geared to challenge you to think critically about certain very complex disciplines of law. And the advantage is that you not only get that kind of you don't only have that kind of satisfaction when you perform well, but also the advantage of actually visiting some places around the world at someone else's cost. You know, I mean, Harrison, who was also a prolific mooter in University of Nairobi, and many of you here, or many of the speakers here will tell you, traveling is not an achievement, really. Traveling is, you can pay a flight and go to South Africa, for instance. You can pay your flight, go to whatever place you would want to go. But traveling at someone else's cost, then that's an achievement. When you are having all your bills catered for, and all you have to show, all you have to do is just show up with your bag and at the airport, is a huge advantage. Now, leave alone those benefits associated with the traveling and the experience that comes with now the international competitions. There is the benefit of being able to develop your oral skills, develop your research skills, and not only that, whenever you go to a law firm, especially now the really good law firms here in Nairobi and other parts of the country, they're really keen on why should they select you. I mean, how many law students are in KABARAK? They're quite a number, and all of you will graduate with a law degree. So the one thing that will be different, the one thing that will be unique in you is the extra thing, that you are able to do just beyond your academic papers and academic or beyond your degree. So whenever you write your CV, of course, we know you have done civil procedure. We know you will do public international law. We know you have done certain courses to earn a law degree. But so that one is common to everybody who graduates with a law degree. The thing that becomes a distinguishing feature or a distinguishing factor, and you can always cite when you are trying to find pupillage, when you're trying to find an internship, is your ability to do these things. And I was telling even, I teach at as an adjunct lecturer at Strathmore Law School. And the thing is that I was telling my students that the life in campus is a very interesting life. You should take advantage of every opportunity that presents itself, be it a writing competition, be it a moot competition, be it a debate competition. All those things are geared to build you to be a better person, which is what you should be seeking now at your level in law school. Well, I can talk and talk and talk, and I really don't want to preempt the many things that the other speakers are going to say, but I'm happy, and it's my pleasure. Really delighted to share my experience even further whenever I'm around your school or around the Nakuru area. I can always drop by upon invitation. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And this is certainly a wonderful initiative. You should probably listen to even more speakers and even plan for more of this kind, so that you have more and more students in your school participating in these activities, because they will help you. They'll help your CV. They'll boost your grades, because again, when you're looking at, I mean, well, Dan said that I did my master's in New York University. I can tell you for sure, and your lecturers will tell you, these universities are extremely competitive. They are really, really competitive to get in. The distinguishing feature is not only the grades. The grades are really, really important. That one goes without saying. You really have to score the highest of grades. But the difference now between you and the other student who only has grades will be now the extracurricular activities that you're able to do when you're in law school. So you see, there's so many advantages that I can relate to at my level as far as mooting is concerned. So not to take so much of your time, because I know I was given 10 minutes and I know I'm already way past that. I want to say thank you very much for extending the invitation to me, and I'm happy to share my experience, and all the very best to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mabuti. That is a very, very, very good advice, especially to the past years, that being defeated in an internal competition by a fourth year is not embarrassing. And in fact, it's an achievement to them. Thank you very much. And without much ado, I shall go ahead and invite Mr. Cedric Kadima. Mr. Kadima is an alumnus of KABARAK University Law School, and is currently a pupil at Mohammed Mugai LLB. He was a senior member of the Mooting Society in KABARAK, and is a decorated mooter. He and his team won the 2018 All AKMCC, that is All Kenya Moot Court competition, and has represented the school in All Africa Moot Court competition, as well as the 2019 FDI Moot Court competition. So Mr. Cedric Kadima, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for inviting me in this platform today. It's quite an exciting platform. When I was approached by Kevin to do a short presentation on generally moot, and he gave me several thematic areas, I decided to choose the simplest one, which is memorial writing. Because I'll just come here, say one word, then we can close the session on the memorial writing. However, that will not be the case. I know I have about 20 minutes. I intend to use less than that. I've just heard Mr. Mabuti pointing out that he at one point participated in one of these IHL, National IHL Moot Court competitions, I think in 2015, 2016. I participated in that moot too. We were the team which was ousted by his team at the finals. And I think I was a first year, second semester student alongside with other senior members of the school. One of my experiences which I can narrate is there is no shame in losing, whether in an internal moot, whether in an external moot, regardless of your stage, whether first year, whether fourth year. But since this platform also serves as an encouragement session, I'd like to encourage as many of you to participate in moot court competitions. I know we are about 80 of us in this platform, but from my past experience, it's usually recurrent. In most law schools, you'll usually meet 5 or 4 individuals who are recurrent mooters. In each and every moot court competition you go, you meet the same people. Then you wonder, why do we have 80 people in this platform, yet we only meet 4 or 5 people in different moot court competitions that you participate? That question has been left unanswered for over a long time. For example, when I was in KABARAK, debates arose as why only 4 people, why only 5 people participate in moot court competitions. There were allegations that some people are cartels, some people, I don't know, do what, but it all points down to dedication, preparation, and much more hard work than a normal individual. So basically, what would I say about writing memorials? To speak in this platform about writing memorials, it's not the most exciting thing. I know if I go to the nitty-gritties of how to write memorials, more than half people will leave this platform and will remain around 2 or 3 people here, just to listen how to draft memorials. So I'll try to compress in a very few words on how to write memorials, and the nitty-gritties on how memorials should be, how they should appear, how arguments should look like, will meet in other more concentrated forums whereby we can discuss. For example, if you're engaging in a particular moot court competition, if by any chance I get invited, then we can deliberate on the nitty-gritties on how to write memorials. But generally, you have a question, you have a moot question. What should you do with it? What should you do with it as a team or as an individual? Most people usually attempt writing memorials as individuals. For example, you'll meet a team, maybe of 2, maybe of 4. Then they say, you do the applicant side, you do the respondent side, you do, I don't know which side, I'll do this side. Which I propose that should not be the case. When you have a moot question, you have an obligation first to read it over and over and again. When I was at that stage, I remember we used to be told we should read the moot question every other day. Because when you read the moot question every other day, there's a new fact which will help, which you'll realize that will help you later in your arguments. Now, you have read the moot question. What next? Do you just go straight into the arguments? Do you just go straight to writing your memorials, or what do you do? Or do you give up? This is what we used to do, which maybe it might work for some of you, it might not work for some of you. When we receive the moot question, read it over and over, know what it wants. We usually went down to the thematic area of the moot court competition. You'll find, for example, a moot court competition, an organizer of a moot court competition is hosting maybe the competition based on business and human rights, or maybe police brutality, or maybe financial accountability, economic crimes. There are different thematic areas in different moot court competitions. When you identify that and you have read the question, mostly the question usually surrounds the thematic area of which the organizers or the people who wrote that memorial or who developed that memorial want you to point your arguments toward a certain area or advance arguments towards a certain area. So it's usually key for you to point out what's the thematic area that the moot court competition wants to achieve. And therefore, from there, you can develop your arguments. And you don't go straight into your arguments. Read about the subject first. For example, you have received a compromise, you have read it, maybe it's on international trade, on subsidies. Go take material, go take textbooks, case laws, articles on subsidies. Read, see what do they say about subsidies, understand what subsidies are. For example, it's on human rights. Pick a book, pick articles, pick case laws, read on human rights, and reach yourself first with knowledge around the subject before you proceed to develop your arguments. By that, it will make your arguments very simple and logical, and it won't give you a hard time at all. So I usually advise read around the subject first before you proceed to develop your arguments. Now, you have already read about, you have already read on the subject. What next then should you go to? What I propose then is just have what you call a summary of the facts of what you've understood. What have you understood the facts to be? Have a summary somewhere separate. So that in the middle of the night, if someone wakes you up and tells you, you have read this compromise, say yes. Give me a summary of the facts. You can quickly tell because you've written down your summary somewhere, you have memorized it, and you have understood it. So that summary is key. Then now it comes to your arguments. Your arguments, point out very logical arguments or issues for determination, which are not hard to dissect, which are very easy to understand, which they are very clear and structured. You can't just throw in issues for determination. You maybe, for example, look for a previous moot which surrounded a similar thematic area, then you lift that question for determination and place it to your moot court competition. No, that should not be the case. Identify what the question needs, frame that issue in a particular way that it is easy to dissect it. And what do I mean it's easy to dissect it? In a way that if you give any lay person and they read that question, whether the state has violated maybe Mumbea's right to education, something so simple, then now you dissect it from there. But now when you have very complex issues for determination, or maybe one issue for determination, which has multiple issues in it, that sometimes can create a problem. Unless you go into a moot court competition and you find that issues have already been provided for you, you are now only required to advance your arguments from there. That's fine and good. But if there are no issues for determination and you are the ones who are developing the issues for determination, make sure they are very simple, easy to understand. Now, while writing your arguments, I know most of you have use, I don't know, IRAC, whichever. I'll still recommend the same. While you're driving into your issues, identify what is the issue, whether the state violated the respondent's right to education. What is the law surrounding that? Put in, the law comes from different areas. It can come from statutes, from the Constitution, international treaties. It can come from the known sources of law. Point them out to lay out your case. Then go to the applicability. How does that law apply to your case? You don't just Article 7 of the Constitution provides for this, Article 10 of the Constitution provides for this, Article 7 of the African Charter provides for this, and you leave it as there. No, bring it, the applicability aspect now into your argument. How does that article affect your case? How do you want to justify to the court that the state violated that particular right? How do you want to justify maybe to the tribunal that a state has gone against the provisions of this treaty or of this charter? That's now where your applicability comes in. And while you're making your applicability point in your argument, make sure it is so logical and so simple to follow. Let it not be complex. That's how we used to do it. One fact, one issue. So for example, you want to construct a sentence, let that sentence only have one fact in support of your issue. Have another sentence with another fact. Don't put too many facts in one sentence in your applicability. Then obviously you come to your conclusion in your issue, whereby now you give how has the state violated? What do you want now that the state has violated that right? Or now that the state has not done this and this, what do you want in the conclusion of your argument? Provide that. And writing memorials is not one of the simplest things. It needs you to think. And by thinking, it doesn't mean you just go the conventional way of writing arguments. No, you need to go what they usually say, outside the box. And outside the box means that, one, you have to look for alternative arguments. Have always a plan B. In the event this argument fails, what's the next recourse? In the event this argument maybe has some little convincing weight. What's your next point of argument? Have that. And remember, all this, you're putting it in writing. Also, when you're writing your memorials, always have a thought. What's the other party going to say? And counter that in your memorials. Because when you leave it as there, maybe the person who is marking your memorials might think, this person, okay, what about this argument that the claimants must raise? Why didn't they address it? Of course, they see, okay, you didn't capture all aspects. You lose some marks. Come to your prayers. Prayers, I have seen people misusing this whole bit of prayers, whereby they give prayers which cannot be implemented. You give prayers which are illogical. You give prayers which are so long that someone can even sleep while reading them. For example, if maybe the state has grabbed land, it has already built there the state house. It's been recognized as the state, as the official residence of the president. You cannot maybe seek for prayer for the state to return that land to you. You can only seek, for example, for compensation. So make sure part of these prayers which you write are very implementable. If you're in that position of a judge, if you're in that position of the mark of that memorial, will that prayer be implementable to you? You ask yourself that question while drafting that memorial. If not, then just strike off that prayer and think of a different one. Otherwise, in summary, what do I have to say about memorials while writing them? Make sure you have clarity of both your mind and your arguments. Make sure your arguments make a logical sense. Make sure they're structured, concise, which means they should be short and precise. And lastly, let them be informative. Let them not just be blank. Let them just not be the normal things that the judge knows. Go out of the box, have ingenious arguments, for example. You can't just have the normal arguments which have been raised over time. Think outside the box, let your memorials be informative. Otherwise, that's the short bit about writing memorials. And I would say, from my experience, since first year until today, about writing memorials, I have seen quite a lot, and I would say the following. What not to do? For example, when I started, when you get the moot court question, don't say you deal with the claimant side, I'll deal with the respondent side. No, preparation starts with you having synergy as a team. Deal with that question as a team. Write those memorials as a team. I have seen teams fail merely because, I don't know, one member of the team did the applicant side, the other one did the respondent side. And so both of them are unable to understand each other's arguments because they did not meet to discuss. Or you find, for example, one memorial has scored maybe, let's say, 20 out of 30, another one has scored 6 out of 30. Why? Because of the inconsistency in writing. They don't rhyme at all. But if you have the synergy, if you work together and write those memorials as a team, you're going to harmonize your arguments, harmonize your style of writing, and you're going to achieve the best marks. I've also seen members of a team or teams while writing their memorials. For example, they say, you do issue number 1, I'll do issue number 3, you do issue number 4, I'll do issue number 5. That's also another way of how not to write memorials. If you're doing issue number 1, do issue number 1 kwa pamoja. Anyway, some instances can arise whereby you meet, you discuss, agree on the argumentation, agree on what issues are going to fall under issue number 1, what facts are going to be under there, what case laws are going to be under there. Then you can give to one person and tell them, okay, I've already discussed this. Now develop your arguments according to how we've discussed. That can work. You can always do that. And a mistake people always do while writing their memorials is to read the question only once and proceed to write their memorials. That's a very dangerous path to take, because when you read the question every day, you at least get a new fact which you're going to apply, a new fact which is going to support your case, a new fact which you're going to use it as an escape route, maybe in your question. So while writing memorials, make sure you capture all facts which are relevant. And some facts indeed are usually irrelevant, but not all facts are usually, all facts are relevant, but some facts are more relevant than the others, especially when you're tackling an issue. For example, if you're tackling an issue of jurisdiction, the population of that state can be relevant at that point. Or if you're tackling an issue on locus standi, for example, the geographical location of that country can have something to tell about maybe the locus standi of the applicant before that court. So make sure you point out those few facts and use them to your advantage. Otherwise, I will conclude my presentation there. And I'd say that if we meet again in the process of preparation of a particular moot, is when now we can engage in the little nitty-gritties on writing memorials, from the style of argument, from the argumentation itself, then from the presentation. Remember, your memorial is the first document that maybe the judges or maybe the organizers of the moot interact with your team. Therefore, if they're not presentable, if they're not persuasive enough, it already forms a judgment about your team. And I've gone to moot court competitions whereby we are in the qualifying rounds. The judges have ruled out and have said both teams are strong enough, and we lost from the judge's perspective on the basis of oral arguments. But now, since the rules of the competition said that for you to proceed to the next round, you have to take your oral marks plus your written arguments. When the organizers took our written arguments, merged with the oral arguments together with the other team, we managed to go to the finals with 1 point ahead of the other team. That's how important written arguments are. So make sure they are so convincing in the event that even if you don't appear in that moot court competition, that at least this team was so serious that if they could have presented their oral arguments, they could have won this competition. Thank you. My 20 minutes are over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Cedric Kadima. Those are very wise words that we've had to hear from you. And among the key takeaways that we got was that you should read the memorial not once, not twice, but every single day. I would like the participants to keep their questions until the end of this meeting. Towards the end of this meeting, that's when we will have our Q&A session, whereby all these speakers shall answer your questions. Without much ado, I shall call upon Ms. Cindy Rennys. Ms. Cindy Rennys is an alumnus of KABARAK as well. She's currently a pupil at Paulson Honey LLP, and she was a distinguished student in KABARAK and graduated with a first-class honors. She was decorated mooter and emerged as the third best oralist in the 2019 global rounds of the JHJ Moot Court competition. So, Ms. Cindy Rennys, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that interesting introduction. I hope you guys can see me. Yes, as you heard, my name is Cindy Rennys, and I'm very happy to be involved in things to do with KABARAK again. It's nice to be part of the community still. I'd first of all like to recognize Cedric. For those who didn't know, Cedric was actually the one who trained me for Moot when I first started mooting, and he can tell you I was not that good, but with a lot of practice, it all came together in the end. So I'll also do a very quick and short presentation, and I sent my speaking points to Kevin so he can share them with the rest of the team. My presentation will only focus on three major things. The first one is knowing your case, as Cedric has already presented on. The second one is how to communicate, and the last one is practicing. So beginning with knowing your case, Cedric has talked a lot about this, and it's important even to your oral arguments to elicit the major areas in question. What is the theme around the moot? It really directs how you research, and whatever you research on informs your arguments. So that's written and oral, right? And your written memorials, as much as you submit them and you think you forget about them, you don't, because they are what you use to practice, they're what you summarize to come up with your oral presentation. So it's very important that you research on the general area that the moot is about and gain a lot of information from that space. So I'll use an example of the John H. Jackson moot. Our moot centered a lot around subsidies. So for me, I did a lot of reading around subsidies just to understand what it was, because honestly, I'd never encountered subsidies in my life. And which is very interesting because I ended up doing my dissertation on our moot. So that's also another benefit of mooting, can give you ideas on what to write about when you get to fourth year. So yeah, I read a lot about subsidies, and it turns out that one of the articles I read was essentially an answer or a direction to our entire case. So that was a really interesting find. So the material that you find around the case, after you've read the compromis several times and you know it in and out, the material that you find around the case is very important, because that's what will bleed into your written memorials, which is what you summarize for your oral presentation. And another point to that is simplify your presentation. So you've already written your memorials, they are like 20 to 30 pages long. You have to simplify that and cut it short, because you're not going to speak on the entire 30 pages. So you have to simplify whatever you've written. And to be able to simplify, you must have understood your case. You must have understood the material. And so that helps you to simplify to the most important points, because as much as you have months to write memorials, oral presentations are generally very short. You can find moots where, like WTI, I think you're given 45 minutes, the entire team. So for the claimants, it's 45 minutes. For the respondents, it's 45 minutes. And between you and the respondents, you have to be very quick because they're very strict on time. And amongst your teammates, you have to then again divide that time so that everyone addresses the points they're supposed to make sufficiently. So you have to simplify that presentation. And the only way to be able to properly simplify is to understand your case and understand what it is you're being asked and what it is you must present on. So that's very important. And to add on that, and just again on what Cedric says, do not prepare separately, because again, with oral presentation, you might find the first speaker, his time ends, and there are important things that you still had to touch on. So you'd have to present them if you were the second speaker. And if you didn't know, if you're the type of team that just divided and everyone stuck to their own issues or their own points, then you would have a problem, because they mark, a lot of the moots, they mark according to the issues that you touch on that they are looking for, right? So you have to finish their case and continue with yours. So it's really important to know your case understand the material around it, and then simplify that presentation into something that can be presented in a really short time, and then know the presentation of your other teammates. So know exactly what they are going to say or what they're supposed to say, so that if they don't finish, or even if you're the person who's doing rebuttals and side rebuttals, you're able to properly answer the questions because you know everything around the case. Now, there's something very interesting with knowing cases. People think understanding your case is cramming. It's not. You're not required to cram the compromise because it's long. It's very long. You can't cram every paragraph. You can't cram the provisions of the GATT or the SCM agreement. It's impossible. But if you understand what they are about, if you understand the relevant provisions, then it becomes very easy to make an oral presentation on the same. So don't cram. Purpose to understand instead. And this even allows you to be fluent when you're answering questions because you understand exactly what the examiner is looking for. So the next thing to discuss is communicating in simple and concise language. Now, to communicate is to understand and be understood. If you are not understanding the other person, and if they are not understanding you, then no communication is taking place there. So the first thing you think about when you're preparing for oral presentations is whatever I'm conveying being understood by the other person, and am I able to understand what the other person is saying to me? And another thing is to speak in simple language, right? I know as lawyers, we are obsessed with big words and sounding very smart and all those things. But in reality, if the other person doesn't understand you, then you're not communicating with them and it's not interesting and it doesn't make you sound smart, because the key to any interaction with any person in a competitive setting, in a discussion, is being able to properly communicate and having the other person understand you. So using big words it's the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So just be clear and use simple language. And then with being concise, it doesn't mean that you be brief. It doesn't mean that now you only highlight and move on. No, it means you go straight to the point. So if I'm talking about subsidies, I don't have to explain the history of subsidies or where they came from. The question is whether there was a violation of the agreement or not, and that's directly what I'm going to address. I won't start from Africa to go to some other state so that I come back to Kenya and make the point I was trying to make. No, just be concise and hit the nail on the head and move on. So on that note, with communication, explain your points in the simplest way possible. And if you cannot do this, then you didn't understand the material and you have to go back and read it again. So again, knowing and understanding your material, it helps you make proper arguments in the simplest way possible. So if we were to talk about subsidies, I'll just continue using subsidies as an example. If we talk about subsidies, I didn't understand what they were when we first got the compromise. But then after reading it and reading it and reading it and reading material around it, I was able to explain it to someone who hadn't heard about it in a very simple way that they understood what a subsidy is, without convoluted language, without taking them in circles. Just explain it in a simple way. If you cannot explain something in a simple way, then you didn't understand it and your oral presentation will fail. So go back and understand the material so that you can reduce it in a way that you can explain it to someone who is in first year, who hasn't even joined law school, and they would understand what you're trying to say. Then another thing is vocal intonation. The places where you want to emphasize, you change your voice, you emphasize, you put the slight pause, the dip in your voice and something like that. That vocal intonation is very important. So use it on your most substantive points and exactly what you want the judges to know that you know. You highlight it using your vocal intonation. And then body language and gestures are also important in communication. So if you are in the mood and let's say you're the respondent, so you're not the first people to talk, but you're slouching or you're seated in a way that's bored, it's very telling to the judges and they actually observe these things. So always keep professional body language. And then your gestures, how you use your hands when you're talking. You know, don't jab someone on the face with your fingers, and you know how you use your hands and how emphatic lawyers can be when they're explaining something. Be very disciplined with how you use your hands. Yes, they can be very useful when you're explaining something, but be conscious of how you use your hands. Then another thing I feel like I forgot to put on my notes, but it's very important, and I noticed I've also done the same thing today, is using filler words like or those kind of pauses. Try to eliminate that from your speech, and this only comes through practicing. So you eliminate those filler words so that even if you need to take a second, just take that second and organize your thoughts and then continue. Right? And this even goes to answering questions when you're asked during a moot. So that's a very important point in moots. They like to ask questions, first of all, to throw you off guard, and then, you know, to see if you know something. But most importantly, those questions actually point us to what they want you to address, and they have a lot of marks. So if you're asked a question, a lot of us tend to, you know, start with, I think that, no, you can listen to the question, take a second to think about it, and then proceed to respond, right? Don't have to use the filler words. And then just as a pointer to general moot is how you address the other party, right? So abusing them or using abusive language, it does not get you points, or attacking your opponent instead of attacking the arguments themselves. It does not gain you any points, and it does not carry any favor with the judges. So I was actually a victim of someone attacking me personally during a moot, and I was actually very unhappy about that. And he's an alumni of one of the previous speakers' schools, so not hinting, but I was very offended, first of all, and it was during rebuttal. So in my head, I'm thinking, are you not supposed to be responding to the case instead of attacking me as a person? But he spent about 3 minutes of the 5 minutes someone is given for rebuttals attacking me personally, and I was very offended. But during our rebuttal, we did not rise to the occasion. We just went straight to the case. And since they didn't even raise any points during the rebuttal, we just emphasized the important points. We wanted the judges to know that we knew. But you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't carry any favor with the judges, because we ended up beating them very nicely. And it was the final rounds, and we were very happy about that. So not how you talk to and about the other party, right? Your language, even when you're saying, Mr. Kadima presented on this and this, don't attack the person, attack the points themselves, the arguments they have raised. Refrain from going into the character of a specific person. And just to add on that is, watch how you also respond to the judges. Don't be antagonistic when they ask you a question, or don't be annoyed that they are taking up time and stuff like that. Just respond to the question respectfully and move on, right? And then knowing your case also adds on to that. So if you respond to the question and you realize your time has really gone, it allows you to be able to eliminate in your head, you know, I don't have to talk about this, I don't have to talk about this, let me go straight to this point and skip to this other point. So it allows you to know what to eliminate, right? And then watch your time. You don't have all day, you don't have the entire 45 minutes because you're in a team. So watch your time, so that if I'm in a team with Cedric and he has 25 minutes and I have 20 minutes, you have to be very mindful, because you still have other points to present on, and that goes to the general marks of your team on timekeeping and things like that. So be very mindful of your time as well. And then on to the last tenet of my presentation is practicing. So when I first started mooting, I hated doing it over and over again. I mean, we are talking about the same points for 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon, and I was not happy about it. You know, first we'd have our rounds with Cedric and we'd do it for so many hours, and then you have Mr. Otiso come and you again have to do the same thing, say the same things for the next how many hours, and you get bored and it's tiring and it's exhausting, and all you want to do is go home, go to the hostels. But that practice is what informs the things you need to go and improve on, right? So take the corrections. When you're practicing with your teammates, when you're practicing with your coach, take the corrections, because they're the ones who are listening to you. So they can be able to tell the points that you're not making clearly. They can be able to tell you the mannerisms that you're not doing, or that you're doing, that are affecting your presentation. And that's really important. And although it's a really grueling task and you have to do it so many times, it helps you during the actual competition, because it becomes like second nature. Even after you asked a question, you know exactly where you stopped, and you know what you're saying after that and after that. And it's honestly the most important thing about oral presentation. It's the practice. I can tell you about knowing your case. I can tell you about all these communication skills, but you can't cram those, right? You can only practice them so that they become second nature to you when you're speaking to other people, especially in a mood setting. So take the corrections when you're practicing with other people, and then practice on your own in front of the mirror with a few of your friends. Have them listen to you and tell you what they think. Are they understanding what you're saying? Do they get bored while you're speaking? Is there something else that you can do to make your presentation more engaging, more interesting, right? And then record yourself. We are our worst enemies, that is true. So you will be able to pick out the things about your presentation that really irritate you the most and be able to work on that. So as much as everyone else will tell you their comments, your own comments are the most important. Okay, not the most important, but they're really important, because you are able to personally pick apart and listen to, if your coach said you do this a lot, you're able to record yourself and actually hear, yeah, he's right, I actually do this a lot. Or I need to change this. Or when I'm saying this point, I need to emphasize because it's really important to my case. So things like that. So knowing your case, just general communication skills, and practice, practice, practice. That is everything on Moots. Yes, and thank you for inviting me for this presentation. I appreciate it, and I really like still being part of the KABARAK community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. That is a very wonderful message you got for us there, that we practice, practice, practice until our memorials or our oral presentation becomes our second nature. Thank you very much, Miss Cindy. You can also, for the participants, you can also write your questions in the chat, then we will ask those questions to the speakers. Going ahead, we shall, this presentation or discussion cannot be complete if we haven't heard from a student perspective, and also from a perspective from a person who has participated in this Mooting Global Rounds. So firstly, let me invite Miss Grace Jelimo, who is a student at KABARAK University, and she represented the school in the semifinals of the just concluded global rounds of the Foreign Direct Investment Moot Court competition. Grace Jelimo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dan. My name is Grace Jelimo. I am a student in KABARAK Law School. I'm currently in 4.1. And for me, mooting has been something that actually has really helped me throughout my law school. Mooting has been a place where I have grown. Mooting has helped me to gain confidence. It has helped me to challenge myself, and it has given me a lot of discipline. So today I'll be talking about the student perspective. For us students, when you think of a moot, what do you feel like? How do you, what do you think when you think of a moot? For me, I've asked many people, why don't you moot? And for some of them, they told me, I don't have time. So for one thing I will address is time, because everyone says they don't really have time to moot. Mooting is a lot. While I would agree, and really mooting is a sacrifice, and most times you have to really put a lot in it so that you can get much from it. So when you start to moot, that means you need to give your time. But then I do not agree with the fact that you really don't have time. I believe myself that once you have purpose to do something, or when you want something, you will particularly put time for it, and you will create time for it. Because, for example, for us students, we have classes throughout the week, but then you can be free during the weekends, you can have free evenings, and you can use this to moot. So what I would say is that we need to create time, because once you really want something, you would go for it and you would create time for it. For instance, in regards to mooting, and for example, for us students, most of you like watching series, and you could take a whole weekend to finish a series. So how much more of even actually just doing one moot and putting time to it? So that is what I would like to encourage all of us, that you can make time for moots. If you really want it, you can do it and you can make time for it. Secondly, I would like to state that mooting helps you to challenge yourself. I would like to give thanks to one Mr. Harrison, who really helped us through the FDI moot. He was a great coach, and without him, we would not really have gone that far. So for him, he always told us that what is more important is the experience which you get from mooting, and not just the moot itself. So sometimes, yes, you want to win, but then what you need to get out of a moot is the experience. I would like to say that in regards to mooting, there is a whole experience which you get that is so invaluable that if you had not mooted, then you would not have it. Because during moots, I believe that at that time we sacrificed a lot. We had sleepless nights. There are times when you just had to get your words right. You had to practice and practice until you got it right. We would meet about 10 people in a week just to practice. So the sacrifice makes you challenge yourself. It makes you become even a better person in yourself, because you start believing in yourself, and you also are able to manage your time well, because now you have to balance your classes, you have to balance moods, you have to balance all of these things all together. And in all that, you become a wholesomely new person, because then you are able really to have control of your life in a way. Thirdly, also, I would like to talk about mooting and the time, as Mr. Mutua has said that you need to start early. For example, if you are in first year, I would really encourage you to start mooting. For me, I started mooting when I was in 2.1, and I did a moot on Sojis. That was an LGBTQ moot, and it was held in Kisii. And at that time, I remember that during that time, I was just doing elections law, and I didn't really have any knowledge on human rights that much, but I just challenged myself and I did it. So what I can tell you is just do it, just begin. Once you start, then it gets better as you go along, you grow a lot. And even if you are in fourth year already or in third year, I would like to insist that it is never too late for you to begin. For example, I have many friends who just started to moot in fourth year, and they have really done a lot, because it doesn't really matter whether you're in fourth year or first year, you just need to start. It's never too late to start. You could start even next semester and you would be amazed by the results. And thirdly, I would like to state that also mooting really helps you in your classwork, especially if you've done a moot and then you go ahead and do units on it. I did the EAC moot, and that was in 31, and in 32, I was taking a unit that is East African Community Integration. And because I had done this moot, I understood it better because I had read the cases and all of this. So when you do a moot, even if it is all Kenya, and then you go and in your class, you're doing human rights, for example, that would really give you an upper hand because you would be understanding all of this very well. Therefore, there is really no loss in doing a moot. It helps you to get a lot of knowledge, which you could use, even as Cindy has said that from a moot, she was able to get her research paper. That is really something good. So there is really no loss in mooting. And also, I would like to talk on the internal rounds. I believe that in most cases, we would do an internal round, and then after that, if you're not chosen, you give up in totality and you really never come back to the mooting. I would like also to say that for me, there are many times I've done internal rounds and I was not I did not qualify. And to that end, I was still persistent to continue doing it because, as Mr. Mutua put it, there is no shame in losing. It is the persistence that matters. Once you come and, for example, one internal round, you do not make it, don't really give up. Just keep doing it until you will be able to get a moot, because there are so many moots. And so don't give up, be persistent. And in the end, you will really make it, because in most times it is giving up that makes us not achieve our potential. Because if I had given up in all those other moods that I did not get, then I would not have even done the FDI. So really be persistent and don't give up. Even if you do not get it in the internal rounds, just continue pushing on and just continue trying. And also in regards to mooting, as we have also spoken about the memorial writing, mooting will really help you in your research paper, because once you are able to understand how to write a memorial, you are able to understand how to marry in the law, the facts, how to also do the referencing, and really just to put in a good memorial. Once you start doing your research paper, it will not be hard for you because you would already have first-hand knowledge. So you would just need to apply what you already know. And again, as I have stated, there is really no loss in mooting, because all of this put together would really be of help to you. And just for the side advantages of mooting, as Mr. Mutua had stated, there's also the advantage of traveling. For example, we know that we have a team which is in Dubai this week. So as this generation, I know, has really romanticized traveling, and this is one way in which you can travel cost-free, and because you'll be sponsored all the way. So despite, yes, we need to win, that is the main thing why we want to moot, and all of these good experiences, you can also be able to travel, and you should participate in moots, because it is just a really good thing. And I believe that while you're still doing your LLB, it is important to have experiences outside of class, because mooting gives you the practical experience such that when you go out to the field, you already know how to speak, you already know how to be confident, and all of this put together will help you even in your future perspectives. With all of that said, I would like to encourage all of us to participate in the coming moots, and yes, to keep trying and to never give up. Thank you. It has been a pleasure.
Madam Grace Jelimo. That was a very wonderful message you had for us. One thing or a number of things that we got is just you need to challenge yourself. And from what I know is that challenging yourself leads to growth. As much as challenging yourself leads to growth, it also helps you discover or unleash your potential, or unleashing the giant in you. Therefore, I really, really appreciate that message from Grace Jelimo. And I encourage all other students to moot and follow her footsteps. Finally, among our speakers today, we have Mr. Sidney Tambasi. Mr. Sidney, or Mr. Tambasi, is a graduate intern at KABARAK Law School. He is an alumnus of Kenyatta University and is the champion of the 2021 Africa Human Rights Moot Court Competition. And he's also a finalist in the 2020 World Human Rights Moot Court Competition. We can as well say he's a friend of the school. Mr. Sidney Tambasi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I'm proceeding with the presumption that you can see me and also you can hear me. Yeah, so thank you very much for this opportunity. I think I have gotten the easiest job, which is to sum up everything Mabuti has said, Cedric, Cindy, and Grace, but to do a little teaches so that I'm not caught up for plagiarizing. So I'll try to change a few sentences here and there. But really, it's a great honor to be part of this great group, both the people who have spoken before me and also the ones who are silent and hearing from us. Hopefully, together we shall grow in this industry. So my presentation will be in a five-pronged manner, so to say. I'll just give some thoughts on greatness as a concept, and then what our role in it, what our role is in it, the journey we need to take or the path we need to walk in order to achieve it, and then what the actual process is, and finally who we need in the process. So it won't be as long as the 5 points are. So to begin with, that is on the thought of greatness. I think that first of all, we need to understand the magnitude, the sheer magnitude of what we are attempting to do, or the sheer magnitude of the endeavor we are taking on, or the quest we are endeavoring to go into. Because even when I look at the past 2 years, Kenya has been either winning or being in the knockout rounds of various international moots. And that means that perhaps at the moment, Kenya is the hotbed of not terrorism, but moot court champions. And so for you to be in this school, because I've seen people in this program are not just from KABARAK, that means you have to go against the greatest the world has seen, at least in the past 2-3 years. It means you have to go against Nyanjes African Nazarene, you have to go against Kihika CON, you have to go against Machina's KU, you have to go against, Cecil Strathmore, and so forth and so forth. So even the competition just at the domestic level is so heavy, but that is what makes what I could call the mature, the mature stage of performance. Because you wouldn't want a situation where, say, you're in KABARAK and you're having an easy time, you're beating all the teams left, right, center, and going to international moots. When the competition is difficult at this level, then it sharpens you. Therefore, perhaps there is a need to understand, speaking in the context of KABARAK, that KABARAK in itself is, to borrow from Gadi's words, a capital of greatness. So Kenya is a capital of greatness. Kenya being a component of KABARAK, being a component or a part of Kenya, then you're also a capital of greatness. We like to say this common phrase among our parlance that sisi ndo tuko. For our international friends from the global north, I've seen Harrison and also Kimani. That translates to we are the ones who are there. And the way it's couched is in a sense that there are other people who are better than us somewhere else, but because they are not here, or because you cannot access them, therefore we are the ones who are there and you have to make do with it. But really, we can give it another interpretation. To mean sisi ndotuko is to mean that, to say it is to mean that if you want to look for the best or the greatest, or, the top of the crop, then we are the ones who are there because it is us who are at the top of the crop. You don't have to look anywhere else. And if you're looking anywhere else, you're looking at it in terms of a horizontal comparison and not a vertical comparison where we are seated at the bottom and they're seated at the top. Because we have seen teams from various universities going out there and beating people, like nobody's business. So that means that as a capital of greatness, we have, in the spirit of understanding the magnitude of what we are getting into or what we already are in, is to understand that every day we have to show up for the job and give top-notch performance, whether it's in the oral presentation, as Cindy has said, whether it's in the memorial writing, as Cedric has said, you have to show up, or whether it's in boarding flights, as both Grace and Mabuti have said, you have to put on your best clothes to do that. So it's really an attitude of greatness and, putting the best foot forward in everything, the totality of everything that comprises your participation or your competition, or you're competing in these kinds of competitions. And then you have also to understand that these competitions, the moot court in itself, choose any, whether it's FBI, whether it's Nelson Mandela, whether it's All Kenya, whether it's the USC KABARAK, none of them owe loyalty to any school. None of them owe loyalty to any team. If you come there this year and you're good enough, you get it. Another team comes next year and they're good enough, they get it. So there is no loyalty to any single team. That is why if you look at the catalog of, I don't know, finalists or champions or people who've been in the knockout stages from any moot, pick any, you would hardly find a team that has been, say winning for 3 consecutive years. You'd find 2, a third year, I don't think so. Or I haven't seen one, maybe I haven't searched hard enough. But that means that there is not a person that is reserved for winning these competitions or for doing well in these competitions. If you fit the bill, you get away with the product. And then on the first point to conclude, what that means is that, again, this is a game of fine margins. The margins are so fine that to separate a winner from a number 2 or a number 2 from a number 3 or a number 3 from a number 4, in the terms of decimals, because they're calculated in decimals. Language, perhaps as lawyers, we understand little about, but again, you need mathematicians for that. And that means that you have to look for your age. What then is your age? Is it your memorial writing? Is it your oratory skills? Is it your knowledge of the facts? Is it your, I don't know, is it your knowledge of the law? Or have you summoned, elders from home to usher you to this foreign land and ensure you get the trophy? I don't know. You have to look for an edge. And that is really what makes you cut, go ahead, just slightly ahead. You have to realize that you just have to be slightly ahead. Get that edge, know it, and work it till it makes enough sense so that you're just slightly ahead when they're calling for people to advance to the next round and you have, I don't know, 0.50 decimals ahead, then it's you. So I just wanted to lay out that the game we are playing at for lovers of football is tantamount to the Premier League, that everybody is good. Everybody is good and everybody is out there working hard to achieve this greatness. But that doesn't mean we fear them. We have to trust what we have and proceed with what we have. But the level really is not simple. So we are not talking about, the question is not, will we qualify to the knockout rounds? Will we qualify past the memorial rounds? The question starts at the quarterfinals. Are we going to make it to the semis? Are we going to make it to the finals? Are we going to get the trophy? For how long are we going to do this? And these are some of the questions we are attempting to address today here. So secondly, our role in this, a discipline, the discipline of mooting, is that we are not just here to travel. We are not just here to enter appearance and get paid our appearance fee. We are here really to help in the development of the law, to help in the development of norm, to question what we have known. Because in all my years of participating in moot court competitions, I think all of them, I haven't seen an exception where they look for gray areas in the law. They look for areas that have not been conclusively answered, because then if they ask you whether I'm wearing, is it cream or black, or whether I'm wearing an African wear or a suit, it's easy. I'm not wearing a suit. So they don't ask those kinds of simple questions, They ask the gray areas. And your role in it is more than that. And one of my trainers is Lizzie, who's also here with me in KABARAK. And she always emphasizes that there is no way you're going to put on that suit and go and appear before those judges and start to fumble, or go and appear before those judges, and start to second guess what you're saying. Because there are experts listening to you. They're going to benefit from you. You yourself are going to become an expert, and you are dependent on this to help share the law or share the development of the law towards a certain direction. And that you have to take seriously. And then secondly, really, is to define and redefine the boundaries. Because in every moot court competitions, the new ones are coming, as Mr. Otiso has mentioned earlier. There are new moot court competitions that are coming and being developed every day. And therefore, the boundaries are expanding. If you are a universe, then you are becoming a multiverse. And if you are becoming a multiverse, that means that our role is to keep, pushing the boundary. Where I come from, we have this concept where ukilima shamba, unalima kidogo ya jirani, you keep extending the boundary. Someday you'll have an acre, but it's illegal. I don't advocate for that. Essentially what I'm saying is There are people who've gone ahead of you. Cedric has gone ahead of you for KABARAK. For Moi, Mabuti has gone ahead of you. They've set the standards. They've said, in Cindy, they've said this is what we have done. But really, I don't think in their mind they want that to be the end, to be the freezing point of what you yourselves can reach. They would be happier if you broke those boundaries and explored new lands and achieved new feats. So we have to break the boundaries, and we have to break the boundaries and redefine them. We cannot be confined to what those who have gone ahead of us have done and say that these guys got here, so we can't get further than that. It's not true. On my third point, which I mentioned, is the path that we need to take to achieve this thing we call greatness, or we call excellence. And for the path, I think it's pretty predictable. It's very, very much predictable. Look, there are common or conventional principles that you need in order to get into this venture that you're getting into. If you read the scoring sheet, the score sheet of any moot court competition, you would see the principles laid there. They tell you we are marking 20 for knowledge of facts, another 20 for knowledge of law, another 15 for persuasion, I don't know, another word for confidence, and another word for performance and stuff like that. Different moots have, just different variants of the same thing, really. And once you have these principles, nobody has a hidden formula somewhere in a vault where you cannot access, and therefore it takes away the excuse from you to say, we don't know what it takes. You've been told the same things, and I'm repeating the same things the speakers who've gone ahead of me have said, that there are no secrets. These things are there, everybody knows them. When you go into a competition, you know the rules, you're able to read the rules, you're able to read the requirements, and you're able to conform to them. You conform to them, you excel. Secondly, on that, I also don't think that you need to reinvent the wheel, really. Part of my preparation for the last moot that I did, which is All Africa, I got a book that Mr. Ongoya had written, which gives his reflections of moots he had done up to around 2004, I think, 2004, 2003, when he was just done with campus. And it's called the Moot Court Formula. When I read the Moot Court Formula, the principles, what I call the conventional principles that are in that book, are the same exact principles that we are using today. What you have not covered for in terms of preparation and foresight, compensate with confidence and stuff like that. It's just the same principles. And in addition to making a heavy reliance on that book, I also took time to go to YouTube and just watch the moots, not for the performance of the oralists, but for the comments of the judges. And I watched so many comments of judges from any moot available, at least given the time constraints and everything, at least the ones I could watch on YouTube. And the judges keep saying the same things. They've been saying the same things from 2006, 2010, 2021, they're saying the same things. Speak slowly, be articulate, be confident, know the facts, all these things. So, you don't have to reinvent anything, which is not to say that there is not room for innovation. There is always room for innovation for any given moot court competition, but that is in addition to the conventional principles that have already been laid out by our forefathers, our foremothers, our foregrandmothers, and so you just have to follow a path. It gets to a point where you have to redefine this path, redefine these boundaries, but at the very least, follow the paths that have been laid ahead by those that have been laid out by those who have gone against before us. And then my fifth point, my fourth point, sorry, is the process, the actual process that gets us to this, to this dreamland, to this hall of fame, to this, I don't know, home of greatness, or whatever we are looking for. And on this, I can say a few things. It requires patience, a lot of patience, but it is not just patience. We have to understand that at any given point, we are racing against time. That means that we have school going on, we have, we are teenagers, millennials, we have all these things going on in our lives. And none of those is going to freeze because we are doing this highly demanding, highly painstaking, highly involving intellectually or physically exercise called a moot court competition. They are going to go on simultaneously. So you require patience, but in contradiction with moving at incredible speed, because nothing is waiting for you. No one is sleeping. Everyone is burning the midnight oil. And because we are in different time zones, while you are asleep, someone is awake somewhere. So you cannot sleep for too long. So secondly, on that is also that I asked a friend of mine who is doing architecture, and he tells me that as of yet, this technology of brick and mortar, it where the masons put a slab and then they lay a brick, and then they put a slab and then they lay a brick, is perhaps still the most widespread or conventional method of construction. And we are in the business of construction. Grace has told you that there are friends of ours who are in Dubai today. So they've taken pictures we've seen huge skyscrapers. I've never seen those kinds of skyscrapers before. I'm still waiting for pictures of the Burj Khalifa because I really want to see what it looks like close up other than the photos on Google. And the technology used to construct this thing is brick and mortar, which is to say that you have to lay one brick, put a slab, lay another brick, put a slab, lay another brick, put a slab. There's going to be a time where you're going to be writing one issue, to be researching on one issue on the memorials, to be practicing on one issue on the orals. And Cindy has told you that it gets boring. You do it over and over and over, and you get too tired because you're constructing, you're laying a brick and putting a slab, and you're laying a brick and putting a slab. If there is technology to do all that at once, I hear the Chinese can do that. I don't know about that. They construct things in warehouses and just put them together and get a whole building to stand in. You saw how they built the hospital when COVID-19 started. I don't know, 5 days what capacity hospital. But so far as I know, that technology is perhaps still there, is only still there. So if we're in the business of construction using brick and mortar, we have to take time, be patient with ourselves, build one thing and make deliberate, measurable steps. What this also means is that you have to exert incredible amounts of effort, deliberate efforts towards a certain definite goal. Which is to say that I cannot want to go to Mozambique and go to Jomo Kenyatta and board a flight that takes off at astronomical speeds towards Canada. You have to go to the direction that you want to go. So the amount of effort required for this is incredible. And remember, everyone wants it. Whatever you want, everyone wants it. And I've mentioned Kenya is the capital of capital of greatness as at now. So that means that there's other great people lurking in the shadows and watching what you're doing and just waiting to grab this prize that you want. So you have to outwork them, you have to outsmart them, you have to have a better strategy. But you don't do this in comparison to them. You trust what you have, not in comparison to them. But also it should not be lost to you that there are people who are putting the same amount of effort or even more effort than you. So that means, you sleep like Kakasungura. We were told that in primary, he sleeps with one eye open. So if there's any slight movement, he's awake and ready to take off. Or for believers, how the Israelites slept on the night before Exodus. They had their belts on and their staff, and they had already eaten. So when the time came, they just took off. Yeah, because you don't want to get caught by Pharaoh before you enter into the Red Sea. Lastly on that is, I mentioned that I made use of the book, The Moot Court Formula by Ongoya. It gives the totality of what we'd call the winning formula. I don't know whether there is one winning formula. From where I sit, I think there is multiple winning formulas for moot courts, and different coaches employ different strategies. So essentially, that means that if you're going into a competition, you have to have your own formula. You have to have a strategy, and you have to, you have to have, account a strategy or something. It's a game of simulation. So that means that you have to simulate possible scenarios and have possible solutions to the best of your ability. It doesn't always pan out as you want. It never does as we have always planned, but to a great extent, it should be able to do that. So once you have this formula that you have that is your own, then you trust it, you work it, and you trust it when you get into a competition. That means that when you're in that room mooting, you don't get carried away by the strategy of an opponent and get confused in the head and slip into their strategy, because you cannot be good enough in something you have not prepared for, and therefore if you get into their game, they beat you there. What we hope for is we are too good, we get into a competition, and therefore we confuse our opponents, we try to adapt our style and we beat them. That's the best, but it should never be us. We should never be the ones falling into that mousetrap. What have I left on my notes? I will conclude with the people we need to walk this journey, or to to take this trip of greatness. And I think we have to have what I call a critical mass. That means that you have to have alongside you people who believe in the dream. That means you cannot be having people who are saying it's not possible. You cannot be having people who are saying that, these things favors white people, these things favors people who can twang and stuff like that. You have to have people who believe in it, people who are ready to say that, we have exams, we have all these things going on, but we are going to sleep less, we are going to watch less movies, we are going to spend less time with our friends to work this thing until we get to what we want. So that means if you watch a movie, and Grace has said that we like watching series, at the end you will see so many names rolling. They call it credits. So many names. And if you take time to look at those credits, they have so many different things that so many different people have done, which is essentially what it takes for winning a moot court competition, or for participating at high levels and competing at high levels and really getting your name, the name of your school, the name of your country out there. So you have to have people around you who believe in this, people around you who have specific roles to play towards this shared goal, to have this towards this shared vision. Perhaps one of the greatest things that has happened in my life so far is watching the Eliud Kipchoge challenge, the 159 challenge. And I took time to, just research what went into this competition. And one of the most striking things for me was that there were 41 pacemakers who ran alongside Kipchoge. 41 pacemakers, the other guys who are running with Kipchoge. And the catalog, or the CVs, and we like using the word CVs here, the CVs of these pacemakers was incredible. A lot of them, if not all of them, had won something at very, very high levels in their careers. But they took time, they agreed to be part of this journey and push Eliud towards breaking the 2-hour mark barrier for a marathon. And essentially that means that is who we need. They didn't just get anyone who could run. Certainly they didn't come for me. They went for highly performing people, and they were able to help Kipchoge. So, you have to have these people around you. And at some point you have yourself to sacrifice your own greatness once you achieve it, to be able to help others. So it's not an individual thing. It has to be collective, and it has to be deliberate, and it has to be pushed and propelled by highly performing people who are sharing in this dream and who really want to achieve what you want to achieve. So in conclusion, also on that, it means that you can't just look within your school. Sometimes you have to source people from outside your school. Sometimes you have to source people from outside your country. When we went for the All Africa Moot, we were together with the KABARAK team, and we spent a lot of time together despite being in competition. I was in KU. So we spent a lot of time together, preparing for the challenges, and we all did exceedingly well in that competition because we were able to look beyond the university pocket or the university barrier and just to push towards, a shared dream that we all wanted. So in conclusion, you have to understand that why we need all these people, why we need people to do exceedingly well, in my opinion, is that you know, we owe a lot of money to to some people from the East in terms of sovereign debt, and they're going to come for their money. So when they come for their money, we need to have enough people so that if it comes to a fist fight, we will gather up and, you know, beat them and win this. Or if it comes to an intellectual battle, we have to have enough people to rally our masses and defend our country. So those are my thoughts, and thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Sidney, for your remarks. These are the thoughts from a global perspective, or a global mooter. Yeah, among the things you've said, there's something that has got my attention. My Moot mentor usually say you cannot have a fool's confidence. You cannot have a fool's confidence while mooting. That means you cannot go there ill prepared. Yeah, and thank you very much once again, Sidney. Additionally, this also what you said while concluding. Everyone wants it, but who is willing to do what it takes to get that what that person wants? So that's a challenge to all of us, and I ask and I request each and every one of us to take to heart and attempt mooting and do it. Yeah, so in this stage, it's this session. At this session, it's the Q&A session. Yeah, and all questions are invited. Yeah, and to begin with, we have a question from Marion B in our chat. She says, I have two questions. I have two questions directed to Cindy. We have heard about your mooting prowess. They refer to you as the Iron Lady. My first question is, what was your driving force? What made you stick to it to the very end? And then secondly, how did you balance books and moots? You got a first-class honors as well as won numerous moots. What is the secret? Maybe Cindy, you can answer Marion B, as well as many of us who are curious to hear your response. If anyone else has a question, you can as well type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and get a chance to speak. Cindy? Well, I can see that Cindy is, or maybe has left the meeting. I shall note down these questions. Then what we shall do is we shall circulate a document with the answers to these particular questions. So anyone else with a question can either raise their hand or write the questions in the chats. Yeah, I can see a hand up. Victor Mungai, you can unmute and ask your question.
My question is, I'm asking, like, I have seen in the draft note for the first years and second years, you're supposed to be a group of 10. Do you prepare the memorials as a group, or how does that go?
You're asking whether you prepare memorials as a group?
Yeah.
You are issued with rules to a competition, and the preparation of memorials, usually you prepare as a team, usually in teams of 2. Yeah, so that's what happens, as a team in teams of 2. There are rules to every moot court competition. There are rules that can stipulate that a memorial or a team should comprise of 3 people or 4. Yeah, so it all depends on the rules of a particular moot court competition. Yeah. Leon, your hand is up. You can unmute and speak.
Hi, I have a question on orals when you're making your oral questions. So, as we all know, the law is an amalgam of various how do I say it? Subjects, so to say. So when you're making your oral questions, can you be poetic or philosophical? Um, yeah, so that is basically my questions. When you are trying to make your oral presentations, can you be poetic, can you be philosophical, or you just deal with the facts as they are?
I guess Mr. Kadima can help us answer that question. Cedric.
I don't know if I'm the proper person to answer the question, but this is how I'll respond to it. During Cindy's presentation, I think she noted that lawyers, we have the ability, or we have the recurrence, or we have the reputation of using sometimes big words or so in that line, either way. But the point is, while doing your oral presentation, in as much as you are allowed to be poetic, in as much as you're allowed to, in as much as you're allowed to be poetic, be keen enough for it not to overshadow your delivery of your arguments. But I'll propose this way. Don't be too over poetic. That's number one. And number two, just deliver your arguments in a very simple and understandable manner. In a manner that both the listener and yourself do not lose the train of your argument. Understand sometimes you might deliver your arguments in a poetic manner to the point that the listener loses your argument. Or for example, if you're before an international tribunal, for example, since we have been raised up in an African way, you will tend to give maybe your arguments in a poetic manner, but from an African perspective or an African culture. Most of them don't understand them. So if you give your arguments, or if you deliver your arguments in such a poetic manner to reflect the African culture, which they don't integrate with, they are likely not to understand your arguments. But maybe just limit to your opening statements and your closing statements, but not throughout your arguments. That's it.
Thank you very much, Sidney. I hope, Leon, that answer is satisfactory. We have Lewinsky Imuhira. Your hand is up. You can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much for this workshop. Okay, my question is very simple. Is using gestures in a moot way wrong? Is it really wrong? Okay, not in the perspective of having too many gestures, but I mean, sometimes you may raise your eyebrows, or maybe your eyes may open, or like sometimes maybe as a speaker naturally you speak hands moving. So I just want to know if it's wrong, or is there a way someone can train you not to be someone who speaks with gestures? Because personally, I'm a person who really speaks with a lot of gestures, and I'm not so sure. Only once have I been told that somewhere that I'm using too many gestures, but I would like to have an opinion, because I think sometimes you may need to move your arms, or you may just out of not a very bad reaction, but you may raise your eyebrows if you really want to emphasize a point. Or how exactly do you submit that orally? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Lewinsky. I shall attempt to answer the question, and then maybe we can hear feedback from Sidney. Yeah, gestures are allowed in mooting, but don't overdo them. just use the simple gestures, just move your hands, but just don't overdo it. Yeah, maybe Sydney, you can add something more to that. Sydney.
Hi. Okay. I don't know. In terms of, that comes down to the, I don't know, to the style or to the manner of presentation. So like Daniel also attempts to answer that question, which means that, we can't overdo it. I don't know. I've never gotten a guide where there is a guide on use of gestures in Moot. Never ever seen that. But there are some, it's conflicted. There are some people who say gestures distract. For instance, if I'm saying I have 5 points, I'll use 1, 2, 3. Some judges say, look, you are shifting the attention from your face to your hands. The others who say you have to use it as a sort of a roadmap, so that it's not just a verbal roadmap, but there is also a gestural roadmap, so to say. My answer would be just be moderate. Just be moderate, and it can be trained, because all of us have certain specific idiosyncrasies. For instance, I'm a person who uses a lot of fillers, and Cindy has warned us against that. So that means you have to train yourself from what you are to become into a performer. In a certain way, as a mooter, you're just borderline a thespian or an actor or an actress. So it has to be moderate. Yeah, I think that's my response.
Thank you, Sydney. I hope the answer is satisfactory to Lewinsky. Yeah, it seems we don't have any other question. We have a comment from Victor Kihika. He says, thank you everyone for the wonderful workshop. We are boiling with motivation. My colleagues and I from UN have really been inspired to aspire. Where can we get the Moot code formula? We can buy a few copies for our society or receive donation. Otherwise, we cannot express our gratitude enough. The pleasure is all ours, Mr. Kihika. At this juncture, I shall invite Mr. Where can you get the Moot code formula? Yeah, you have my number. We'll talk about that. For those in Kabarak University, those books are in the library. At this juncture, I shall invite Mr. Harrison Bori to give his closing remarks, as well as to integrate the new Moot code policy. Mr. Mbori, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone. My name is Harrison, and I'm happy to be here. I want to thank the previous speakers for the wonderful presentations that we've had today. Because of time, as you might have noticed, there's just so much that can be discussed. I mean, you could organize an entire seminar on this, and it will take months to complete. So I'm happy that all these speakers who are very experienced and have insider knowledge have spoken to us. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Cedric. I would like to thank Cindy, Grace, and also to thank my good friend Sydney. I wouldn't reiterate much, but to really thank them, and to say that this is a good way, especially to give back both to the institution and also to give back to other students generally who are behind you. So that's a good thing. My role is simple. I would want to inaugurate what we think is an internal moot that we are trying to set up soon. And we want it to sort of be a platform where you can internally start practicing, internally use the skills, and also use it as a platform for purposes of selecting teams for, future moot at KABARAK Law School. And so if possible, it might be annual. And we worked together with Mr. Otiso, with Daniel and Kevin to sort of try to inaugurate this. We have decided to call it the Frank XJC Njenga KABARAK Law School Moot Court Competition, and it's going to be annual. And we are dedicating it to Professor Frank XJC Njenga, who was international, maybe one of the biggest international law scholars that has come out of Kenya. He went to school very early in the legal trainings in Kenya, studied at Makerere in the 60s and at the University of Dar es Salaam in the 60s, which was then the only institution in East Africa which would offer law. And it was also as part of a program from the University of London. Then he went and did his LLM at the University of Columbia and then at NYU, and taught back at Dar es Salaam, taught at the University of Nairobi, and at the latter part of his career, he taught at Moi University. But for a long time, he was I worked for the Kenyan government as a special advisor to the ministry, to the Foreign Affairs Ministry, was one of the early Kenyan representatives at the International Law Commission. And he was also the Kenyan representative at the Law of the Sea Conference between 1973 and 1980. And some people actually credit him with maybe being the, together with, I think, other, scholars and practitioners from the global south, as being the brain children of the they birthed this idea of the exclusive economic zone, for those who know the law of the sea. So that is what it is for him that we have dedicated and decided to memorialize the moot around, because we felt that he is one of the scholars in Kenya who's not well recognized, and he's many students of international law currently and in the past do not know him, unless you are at Moi University, where he taught towards the latter the latter part of his career. He also wrote a book in the early 2000s on international law, which is also not very much known by many students of international law in Kenya. And so for some reason, FX Njenga has disappeared in the general memory of international law in Kenya. And we thought that, honoring him with, naming the moot after him and many other things that we plan to do, to remember him is good. We have divided the moot in two sets, a junior version and a senior version. Dan is going to share the rules of the moot. So the juniors will be first and second years, and the seniors will be third and fourth years. And as I've said, it's a good opportunity for you to, put into practice all of this that we have been speaking about today. But it's also a good opportunity for you can use this as a stepping stone to represent the university in the many national, regional, and international moots. So I just think that I think it's Mabuti who I think has already left, who said that starting early is important. I think one of his one of the pieces of advice he gave was that you can do well if you start early. That experience is important, and I think that is a point that should be taken seriously. If you have attended this and you're a first year, you should start now. I started as a first year, and I don't regret it. It was an amazing experience. For the four years I was in law school. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity here. There is, you should be fired up to start, and we are giving you, premium opportunity to start. The moot question is going to be shared, hopefully today or tomorrow. The rules are going to be shared hopefully today or tomorrow, and we hope that we can do those rounds somewhere in the mid of January, so that you have enough time to prepare and you have enough time to get clarifications, and hopefully we can make the Moot grow so that it becomes an annual event, which is done every year for purposes of just strengthening and building a very strong Moot court culture in the university. And with that, we would I know that very soon you're going to find these details on your email inboxes. I encourage you to do it, especially if you've attended this, and if you have friends who wanted to attend this. Select teammates within your classes, or you can even partner second year and a first year, or a fourth year and a third year. It's going to be a great experience, and I hope to see you all doing the internal rounds. Thank you very much, Daniel. I pass it back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison is the man behind the new Moot court policy, and that the new Moot court policy that will address the issue of inclusivity of all in the Moot court department. Unless there's any question from the participants, I wish to end the meeting there. Ms. Christine Juma, you can prepare yourself to pray for us as we conclude this meeting. Unless there's any question. Christine.
Okay, let's pray. Heavenly Father, in the mighty name of God, we thank you for the session that we have had. We thank you for the great things that we've had from our fellow mooters and even those who have gone ahead of us. We thank you so much, God, and we pray that you may continue to keep them, guide them, even in whatever they do, and as they continue to moot out there and whatever it is they're doing, you will bless them. We as students also continue to pray for your guidance, even as we learn from these people who have made us proud, and not just KABARAK University, but continue to do us proud wherever